Welcome to the ISO Show, dispelling myths and sharing tips for success to improve your business with ISO standards, with your host, Mel Blackmore.
If you're listening to this podcast, then you're in great company. We've got thousands of listeners who have a thirst for continuous improvement and raising standards in business. Whether your interest is in quality, sustainability, or risk standards, I'd love to welcome you as a member to our online platform for all things ISO, the ISOlogy Hub. The ISOlogy Hub is the leading place to get access to all of your online resources, from in-depth training courses, through to our very popular coffee break training, to templates and action plans and many other resources to help raise standards. As a member, you get access to over 100 courses, taking you from learner to practitioner to leader. The ISOlogy Hub has all the resources that you need, which will really help to make your life easier and to help improve compliance in those business critical areas. So if you'd like access to learning and compliance resources ranging from data privacy to environmental management, anti-bribery, business continuity, quality, health and safety, to name just but a few, the list is endless actually, then we'd love for you to come and join us. Just head over to the isologyhub.com.
Hello, and welcome to the ISO Show. I'm Steph Churchman, and I'm the Communications Manager here at Blackmores. Today we have an interesting topic brought to you by some research done at the end of 2023. I'm going to be diving into ISO standard trends within the data center industry, specifically within the UK. Now, you may be asking, why did we look into this industry in particular? A simple answer would be pure curiosity, but it does actually go a bit deeper than that. To give you a bit of context, I've been with Blackmores for just over 10 years now. When I first joined, I was a lot more involved with the commercial side of things, specifically where sales and admin was concerned. To be clear, I'm not a consultant, but I have been privy to trends in the ISO market through my years of working at Blackmores. One that cropped up within the first few years of working here was the amount of data centers who were requesting assistance with implementing various ISOs back in the mid-2010s. That ended up sparking a market research project which saw Blackmores working with a lot of the top UK data centres to obtain various ISO standards. And now in 2023 and 2024, we're seeing another push for data centres to implement various security and, probably more importantly, sustainability-based standards. So we decided to look a bit more closely at the top 100 data centres in the UK again, with a fresh pair of eyes more than 6 years on from that initial project. Some of the results will be expected, but there may be a few surprises in here for you. So, let's start off with the most popular and most likely obvious one, ISO 27001. Out of the 100 data centers sampled, 72% of them were certified to ISO 27001. This isn't really surprising considering ISO 27001 is, of course, the standard for information security. Security is of utmost importance to data centers. And the great thing about ISO 27001 is that it considers security not only for the digital environment, but also for people and physical security. Goes without saying that this is a must for an industry that goes so far as to almost hide their site locations. Sure, they may have a documented address, but these obviously aren't going to be signposted. From our consultant's experience, just getting through the front door can be an ordeal in itself, which is exactly what you want from a business that houses an unfathomable amount of data. It was definitely a learning curve when we first dived into that market, to realise the amount of security checks that were required before consultants were even allowed into the building and specific areas to carry out internal audits. This standard is also, in most cases, a stakeholder requirement. Certification to ISO 27001 indicates that you're adhering to best practice in information security. And through the creation of an ISO 27001 compliant management system, you will have documentation in place, such as an information security policy or a data retention policy, that often get requested by potential clients. If you'd like to learn more about the implementation process for ISO 27001, we've got a helpful 3-part podcast series that summarises that entire process from gap analysis to assessment preparation. You can go back and listen to episodes 13, 14 and 15 for that. And I suppose now's as good a time as any to remind anyone currently certified to ISO 27001-2013 that you have just over 1 more year to complete your transition to ISO 27001-2022. If you don't do so by October 31st, 2025, you'll risk losing your ISO 27001 certification. That's not the only reason you should be transitioning though. The new version of the standard includes 11 new controls which cover some newer technologies that weren't really around when the 2013 version was published. So regardless of the risk of losing your certification, it's actually in your best interest to ensure that you're adhering to the latest version. If this is all news to you, then you can go back and check out episodes 128 through to 133. This was a mini-series that we did to summarise the key changes to the standard and what actions you need to take to transition. And we also have a transition game plan available on the ISology Hub if you'd like a more guided approach. This includes document templates and training videos covering those new controls. Now moving on to the second most popular standard for data centres to adopt, ISO 9001. The quality management standard is as popular as ever, even within the data centre space, with 51% of the 100 sampled data centres being certified. This one probably isn't much of a surprise either. ISO 9001 is considered the leading quality mark for businesses and is often the starting point for many diving into the world of ISO implementation, and for good reason. ISO 9001 creates a well-rounded base management system to help you manage your risks and opportunities, as well as ensuring you drive a culture of continual improvement. Its guidance can help you establish your core policies, processes, and procedures to ensure that everyone is singing from the same song sheet. Fun fact, 18 years ago, back when Blackmores started, ISO 9001 was the only standard we helped business to implement. That's since expanded into over 20 other ISO standards in the years following, but it does go to show that if you understand and can implement ISO 9001, the process will be very similar for other ISO standards. That's likely another point in its favour. ISO 9001, like many other ISOs, is based on the Annex SL format, and allows for easy integration if you wanted to gain certification to ISO 27001 or ISO 14001, for example. So many opt to implement ISO 9001 first, and then integrate other ISOs down the line once the base management system has been established, communicated, and utilised throughout the business. The fact that this one is popular among data centres isn't too much of a surprise. It's a universally adopted standard that isn't really limited by industry or organisational size. Currently, there are over 1 million ISO 9001 certificates issued worldwide, and that trend shows no signs of slowing down. Moving on to the third most popular standard for data centres, ISO 14001. ISO 14001 is a standard for environmental management, and honestly, this one was a bit of a surprise for me, especially with 25% of the sampled data centres being certified. Now, from an objective point of view, it makes sense for data centres to consider their environmental footprint, but a lot of that would fall under energy usage rather than just general environmental management. So this leads me to believe that this is another standard that's driven by stakeholder requirements. ISO 14001 is being requested more and more for the likes of large government contracts, so if you want a chance for bidding for these, ISO 14000 certification is a must. This typically applies more to other industries, but with various government commitments to reach 2030 and 2050 targets for carbon emissions reduction, it's not surprising to see that it may be applied across the board regardless of sector. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's a lot of data centres that have implemented this standard in an earnest effort to monitor and measure their impact holistically. After all, ISO 14001 asks businesses to consider how they can prevent environmental impacts such as pollution and degradation of nature. And the additional guidance provides some helpful starting points for those who may not be sure where to start, for example, making commitments to recycling and protection of biodiversity and climate change mitigation. For data centres specifically, this may come into effect when we think of the amount of electronic waste that they could produce. Obviously, they can't just be thrown out in a standard green-labelled bin. It will need to be taken to a dedicated electronic waste facility for processing, disposal, and recycling. Racking, shelving, and cables will also need to be replaced at some point, and it's up to each data center to ensure that they have the appropriate processes and policies to ensure this is done correctly, and more importantly, legally, which again is where ISO 14001 can help put those frameworks in place.
Are you new to ISO standards and want to know what it's all about? Or maybe your company has multiple ISO standards, but there's a lack of engagement and compliance. Whether it's quality, sustainability, or risk standards, the Isology Hub is your one-stop shop for all your online learning resources associated with raising your company's standards. From as little as £99 a month, you can have unlimited access to hundreds of online training courses and achieve certification for completion of courses along the way, which will take you from learner to practitioner to leader in no time. So what courses are in the Hub? Well, there are courses on everything a head of quality, sustainability, information security and health and safety would need to manage compliance and raise standards. With over 100 courses available to you, here are examples of just a few. ISO 9001 Internal Auditor, how to transition to the new ISO 27001 standard, the role of ESG in quality management, and how to integrate management systems. But it's not just courses in the Isology Hub. You can access templates, downloads, and action checklists to take your business to the next level. So why not try the Isology Hub today? Just click on the link at www.isologyhub.com and you'll get access to all our resources within minutes. If you're interested in embedding best practice across your organisation or would like to develop an awareness and training programme for employees, we offer a free learning and development session to tailor a bespoke training programme based on your organisation's needs. So we'd love for you to join as an Isology Hub member. Just head over to isologyhub.com to get access to your unlimited training and compliance resources.
Now, this one confused me because I honestly thought number 4 would be higher on this list, that being ISO 50001, the Energy Management Standard. With just 13% of the 100 sample data centers certified, this one is a shocker because typically data centers' highest costs is in relation to their energy usage. They require enormous amounts of energy to keep their facilities running and to cool down their equipment 24/7, which I imagine they'd be quite keen to reduce if only to save on the running costs. This is where ISO 50001 can come in, to help create a structured approach to effectively monitor that energy use, so that you can identify key trends and opportunities to reduce overall energy consumption, which of course in turn will save a lot of money. Now that's just a nice bonus from helping to reduce your overall carbon emissions, which really should be your main goal. With a healthier proportion being certified to ISO 14001, it seems a shame that so many are missing out on the additional benefits that ISO 50001 can bring, especially as it can be easily integrated with ISO 14001. In fact, if you're already certified to ISO 14001, then you've already done half the work to implement ISO 50001. Both frameworks are based on that Annex SL format, and both have a lot of common in terms of what documentation is required. It can also help with compliance with some UK and EU-based energy initiatives. For example, here in the UK, we have something known as ESOS, which is the Energy Savings Opportunity Scheme. This applies to large organisations that fit within its criteria. They're usually required to provide a report once every 4 years. However, as of 2023, Phase 3 now requires organisations to provide an energy action plan, which details what actions they plan to take to reduce their energy consumption. I'd imagine there are a fair few data centres that would fall under ESOS's criteria. And if you're sick of going through the ESOS song and dance every few years, then ISO 50001 may be the answer for you, as being certified means that you're going above and beyond ESOS's requirements and will be considered compliant, meaning no more pesky reporting or having to locate ESOS assessors to sign off those final reports. I can't speak for other countries, so it's worth checking the appropriate government advice in your country to see if certification to ISO 50001 can help you comply with any of their mandatory initiatives. And now on to number 5, which goes to ISO 22301, with 12% of the 100 sample data centers being certified. This is another that, in my mind at least, makes a lot of sense. ISO 22301 is the standard for business continuity and provides a basis of planning to ensure your long-term survivability following a disruptive event. I think that 12% may not be truly reflective of all the data centers that have business continuity plans in place, however, as according to a recent Business Continuity Institute survey, 56% of surveyed businesses use ISO 22301 as a framework but aren't certified to it. I'd imagine that there's a fair few data centers within our sample list that fall under that category. However, you may be wondering why it may be such a priority for data centers, even if they aren't going to go for full certification. Well, the answer should be fairly simple. If a disaster were to knock out a data center, that has a massive knock-on effect. Many house servers used by hundreds, if not thousands of businesses and users. If they're unable to provide services, that will in turn cause multiple other businesses to grind to a halt. I'm sure we've all experienced a time where a popular social media platform just ceases to work for a few hours or even possibly a few days. I can certainly recall a fair few instances where that's happened to Instagram and Facebook, and many of these outages can be attributed to failures at data centers. The true cause of these can be many things, such as a hardware failure, human error, or a disaster such as a flood or a fire. However, the advantage of utilising ISO 22301 is the ability to be able to effectively deal with these incidents and restore services, which I'm sure you'll agree is essential for an industry which is quite literally the powerhouse for millions of other businesses and people. A quote that seems apt here is, "If you fail to plan, you plan to fail." Having a robust business continuity plan should be a top priority for any business, especially data centers, seeing as so many rely on them to keep their own services running. Even if you don't want to go through the full certification process, I definitely recommend grabbing a copy of the standard, as it provides a lot of helpful guidance. If you'd like to learn more about ISO 22301 in general, you can go back and check out episode 42, where we go over the standard in more detail and cover its many benefits. So those were the top 5, however I would like to mention a few runner-up standards that a fair few data centers also held certification for. The first being ISO 20000, the Service Management Standard, with 11% of our sample data centers being certified to this standard. This actually used to be known specifically as the IT Service Management Standard, so that probably clues you into as to why this would be adopted by many within a tech space. However, it truly is applicable to businesses offering any service. As our information security guru Steve Mason once described it, it's the poor cousin to ISO 9001. The aim of the standard is to provide a framework for an effective end-to-end service management system, which encompasses the entire life cycle of a service, from concept and design through to service removal and end of life. As I mentioned, it was originally an IT-focused standard, being evolved from the ITIL framework for service management. But today, it can be used in all types of service industries, particularly where there is a need for a help desk or a service desk system. So overall, it's not really a surprise to learn that it's still popular within the data center industry. The second runner-up is ISO 27017, the standard for information security controls for cloud services, with 5% of our sample data centers certified. I suppose this one is self-explanatory in its relevance to data centers, which operate solely based on cloud services. Though I suppose it's more surprising to see that it's so low down on the list, especially with so many certified to ISO 27001. This standard is within the same family and is designed to integrate seamlessly within an existing ISO 27001 management system. The standard itself was introduced after the 2013 version of ISO 27001 was published, as the main standard at the time didn't really address cloud security controls specifically, mostly because cloud computing and its related security weren't as widely adopted as they are now, so ISO 27017 was created to try and bridge those gaps. In the latest 2022 version of ISO 27001, there is now a new control specifically for cloud security, so we may see less interest in ISO 27017 going forward. And that's it for our top ISO standard trends within data centers. I hope you found this useful or learned something new while listening. If you'd like to learn more about the standards mentioned, check out the previous podcast episodes I referenced. And for those that would like some further learning, we do also have some introductory courses for each standard on our online learning platform, the ISOlogy Hub. Links to learn more about that will be available in the show notes. As always, we'd really appreciate if you'd like and subscribe on your preferred media player. And if you have a minute to spare, leave us a nice shiny 5-star review to help our podcast reach a wider audience, so we can continue to share more ISO hints and tips. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch up with you on the next ISO show.
Looking to use ISO standards to drive better business practice? Contact us at blackmoresuk.com to access further information and book your free 15-minute call.